Welcome to Conversations with Barbara. My guest today is Falmouth Chief of Police Edward Dunne, who is here to talk about what we are going through as a country. These are certainly challenging times. Welcome to the program, Chief Dunne.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Barbara.
Let's begin by talking about the incident that has sparked this demand across the country for police reform, and that is the incident that caused the death of George Floyd.
Yes, I mean that was horrific, and it's an incident that never should have happened. And I can tell you, law enforcement across this country is also appalled by what they saw that day and heartbroken, because that's not how law enforcement should react or do act, at least here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and right here in Falmouth.
Yes, some of the demand for reform, I think, probably is in police training. Are the programs that we have enough? We know that racial bias is implicit. It isn't always something that even an individual is aware that he or she has those thoughts. So what's your assessment of the program that we have now in Falmouth?
I mean,
police training.
Training in Massachusetts has always been good, Barbara. We always, just recently, a couple of years ago, you may remember with the different shootings that had gone on with our police officers here in the Commonwealth, we wanted more money for training. Because we was really underfunded budget. But Massachusetts has been fortunate over the years to be in the forefront of bias training, use of force, and things like that. And this goes back, as you are aware and the community is aware, this is not the first time law enforcement has been in this situation. When you go back to 2014 in Ferguson, when the incident happened there. 2015, President Obama formed a task force which came out with what was called 21st Century Policing and the 6 Pillars. And Massachusetts was already doing, and many police departments, including this one here in Falmouth, were already doing those 6 pillars. So Massachusetts has always been in the forefront of training and making sure our officers are trained. It starts right from day one when they go to a police academy, and then they get yearly training on these items when they go to what's called in-service every year, so that they are updated with the most recent policies and procedures.
I see. How often is that
That's yearly. Once you graduate from the academy, yearly you have to go to in-service. But we also do a lot of training in-house, and then there's also some training that the officers can request to go to, or if we find some training about the Commonwealth that we send them to. A lot of times we send them to Roger Williams College, has a lot of training down Rhode Island for different projects, so we send them there. Training is a very important.
Some of those who are new to Falmouth, yeah, it is. But tell us something about Falmouth community training. I know that has been going on for several years. It's not new, but it involves something quite special.
Yeah, we here in the Falmouth Police Department have, we wanted transparency with the community. And going back many years, we started a program called Citizens Police Academy, where we actually invite the citizens to the police station. It's usually around 12 to 15 weeks, depending on the time of year. And we go over everything in the police department. We go over policies and procedures. We show them the equipment. They're allowed to ask officers anything they want, any concerns that they might have. And they also get to go on a cruiser ride with the officer, so they can actually see what a police officer does. And over the years, we've had some people come in and take the course because they may have read something or heard something in the paper or on TV about law enforcement in general or about the Falmouth Police Department. And then once they've taken that course, they've become actually ambassadors and advocates for the police department because they've realized what we do. Our officers are well trained. We have great equipment, and it's changed the perspective of what they thought. And we've even taken it one step further, Barbara. We now, so that we can have a relationship with the youth in our community, we also have what's called a junior police academy that runs with the Morse Pond School. And we've geared the topics towards that age group, such as internet safety, strangers, and things like that. So it's something that we're very proud of. And we've had a lot of citizens come through the academy and get a better understanding of what the Falmouth Police Department is all about.
Yes, I like the idea very much of the youth training. And as a matter of fact, I have so many friends who took that course, and everyone has said to me that ride in the cruiser at night was really an eye-opener for many citizens. It's a wonderful program.
Yeah, and we're gonna, I mean, we had to stop it during this whole COVID pandemic, but once we get through all this, we hope to, bring it back again.
Oh, that's offered many times throughout the year.
We usually offer it at least once a year. Sometimes we'll offer it a couple times a year.
Right. And then there's this have a cup of coffee with a cop.
Yeah, we've done that program too, which is Coffee with a Cop, and we've partnered with different restaurants in town, and we go there and we just what it says. We have coffees with citizens. And we have different officers that are there, and the citizens can ask us anything they want. And we can hear their concerns. It might be they have concerns about something going on in their neighborhood, or they may just have a question about the police department. We started that program a couple of years ago, again, been very successful. Another program that we have, which is huge success in this town, is what we have, we call them their liaisons. We have different associations in town, different villages, different community groups, and we actually assign an officer to that group. And it's twofold on that. The reason we assign the officer there is so the officer can hear their concerns about their neighborhood, their area or town, and we also share information that we may be able to share with them. And if there's a problem, we work on it together as a community to solve that problem, whether it's barking dogs, vandalism, speeding cars, and things like that. So it brings the community and the police department together because the police department can't do it alone. We need to do it as a partnership.
Yes, and speaking of that, of not being able to do it alone, some of the criticism has been that too much is expected of, for example, dealing with mental illness or dealing with physical handicaps. The question comes up, why is it that a police officer is the one who comes when there's an issue of, say, a 911 call? Is it the case that an individual cop is overburdened but the demand is for skills he may not have?
Law enforcement's changed over the years in my years here, from upholding the law, stopping speeding cars and catching criminals who break into homes. We now wear different hats. With addiction so high here on Cape Cod in the opioid crisis, we ended up having to administer Narcan. Where prior to that, we didn't administer anything other than first aid. CPR and some bandages and things like that. That was always the fire department's job to administer any kind of substance to the individual. But today, our officers are all trained and we're administering Narcan. The homeless population, we're dealing with the homeless population. We're dealing with the mental health population. So yes, law enforcement has taken on a lot of other roles. It seems like it all got handed down to law enforcement, and it's because we're normally dealing with them anyways. But we've had to train our officers. Let's talk about mental health, for instance. Several years ago, I belonged to the International Police Association, and that's a worldwide police association. And we took a pledge here in Falmouth, which was called the One Mind campaign. And what that One Mind campaign was that the police department would form policies, form partnerships, train their entire department in mental health first aid, and then also train 20% of the department in a critical risk team, which would partner with an outside agency. And we partner with the Falmouth Human Services. We actually go and visit. If we get a call, like you just said, we get a 911 call, we just get a regular call to a home, and the officers determine that the person might be in some sort of mental health crisis. If we can assist them at that particular time, whether it's taking them to the hospital or whatever the incident might be, we do it. But what we also do is we do a follow-up, and we do a follow-up with our mental health partners from Human Services and the police department to see what other services we can get for those people.
So that's the local cop as social worker. That is quite a demand.
Correct.
That put on them.
Yeah, and we're doing the same thing for the overdoses, the opioid crisis. We go, if somebody overdoses, we, our team, we partner with Gosnell on that, and we'll go and we'll visit that individual to see if we can get them some help. They may not always want help the first time, but we're consistent with it and persistent to try to get them help to save lives. So yeah, law enforcement has changed from just chasing bad guys to being social workers.
Yes, yes. Would you like to see that some reform in that respect to take that particular task away and have another institution taking care of that?
It wouldn't hurt. It would allow us to do some other things. Like I say, it just seems because law enforcement's the one that responds to it, law enforcement seems to be the one that ends up with it. So anything to help.
Well, perhaps that will come under investigation and maybe some improvements made. I want to ask you also about a huge issue that everyone is talking about, and that's the militarization of police forces. That some forces in some parts of the country have armored vehicles, rifles, all kinds of weapons that ordinary police don't need, and that there's some thought that really adds to the kind of violence that we have been seeing, the kind of a brutalization of police work. What's your take on that? Again,
it depends on the particular area, but I can tell you here in Falmouth, we don't have any armored vehicles. We have access to an armored vehicle. It's called a Bearcat, and that is only used in a situation that we're doing high-risk raids for drug houses and things like that. That might be a home that we're very familiar with that has weapons and things like that. And a vehicle like that is there to protect our officers when they do the search warrant to that particular home. As far as what you talk about, militarized type of weapons and things like that, the weaponry that we have is the weapons that we need to do our job. I mean, as you saw many years ago when active shooters started appearing across the country with school shootings, a lot of departments, the police department was outgunned and didn't have the weapons to deal with the situation. So, departments through research and training, and it's all about training. It's how you train and policies and procedures when certain weapons are used and things like that. What makes it safe for everybody, the community and the police department.
Mm-hmm. I think I can quote something you have said about not wanting to have all police departments painted with the same brush. And I can, from your comments, that things differ from place to place. It may be that cities with large populations have a more challenging problem.
Oh, absolutely. I would say they would, because again, we're fortunate here in Falmouth. But no, you're absolutely right. What happened with George Floyd? Absolutely devastating, and people are angry, and they should be angry. But that's one officer, and all officers shouldn't be painted with that, because we have in the Falmouth Police Department, our officers serve this community with pride, and dignity, and treat people with respect, and we'll continue to do that.
That's it's very good to hear. It has come up too sometime that chiefs of police have economic responsibilities too, and sometimes if you have a limited budget, there's a tendency to rehire somebody who has been discharged elsewhere, mostly because you don't have to invest in training and that sort of thing. It becomes economically feasible to rehire. I wonder, and that's why we find in lots of places where policemen who don't have the best record are rehired in other jurisdictions or other parts of the country. Can you comment about that?
Falmouth, again, towns are different. We have communities in the Commonwealth, and they are divided. There are what's called non-civil service departments, and then Falmouth Police Department is a civil service department. We come under the state guidelines as far as hiring. Excuse me. We have to wait for a active civil service exam, and then when that exam comes out, we can pick from that list. There's a residential list and a non-residential list, and we usually hire off the residential list because it's a resident of the town of Falmouth, someone who's born and raised in the community or lived in the community and has some ties to the community, and we think that makes a better police officer. But the Falmouth Police Department, I can't speak for all police departments, but I do know they do backgrounds. We do very intensive background checks on individuals prior to hiring them. We also do physicals, and we do psychological exams before we even hire them. We try to do our due diligence to make sure we're getting the best candidate for the police department, and particularly the community when we hire. As far as rehiring, there are people on the civil service list that they're called rehires, but they're officers who have been laid off. It's not so much discipline pieces, but even if they've been laid off, we still do an intensive background to find anything in their background before we hire them.
Yeah, that is very interesting, and it would seem that that we have lots of different situations and lots of different chiefs of police. It's very nice to know that we have these safeguards in Falmouth. You spoke earlier about community policing and the rapport that you want to have officers have with citizens. It's a two-way street. What would you ask of residents? How are they're part of this partnership as well? What would you ask of them?
Absolutely. Excuse me. Absolutely. And it is evident at this particular time, because I've got a lot of emails, and I've had a lot of people during these recent protests that we've had. They've actually come up and thanked us for what we do here in Falmouth. Just show appreciation for what the officers do every day, because you do know your officers here. You do know how we treat people, and just be respectful, same as we're respectful to them.
Do you have a large pool of candidates? Is there a question of, do you think that this climate is making young people less willing to become police?
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult hiring here in the future. It has been very difficult because the pool has not been very large as far as hiring right at the moment. I think it's a generational piece. jobs, the job market prior to COVID was very good. So a lot of people, were going into the private sector, probably because there was more money in that. But with incidents like this, it makes it very, very difficult because people really start to rethink whether they want to be painted with that broad brush, because the job is dangerous to begin with, but it even becomes more dangerous in times like this because, as you've seen by some of the cities that have gone on and some of the places throughout the country, the officers who have been shot, stabbed, and everything else, things thrown at them. So when you really think about it, is this a career that you really want to do right now? So yeah, this is going to make it a lot harder to hire candidates in the future.
See, so, well, I like to think that this period that the whole country is going through is maybe good because at least we're looking at ourselves, self-examination. Are you optimistic about the outcome? Will we be seeing reforms that need to happen?
There are conversations, excuse me, there are conversations going now in communities and in areas. And as I said, Barbara, this is not the first time law enforcement has been in this position. And it's not a great position to be in. But I think if law enforcement as a whole listens to the concerns, works with their communities, work with the legislators, we can recover from this.
Well, that's good to hear. I feel that way too. I think the conversation is perhaps a little different now, and maybe this is a tipping point where we will begin. And not, obviously, the police, like our schools and our institutes, they reflect attitudes in society, so that some of those, some of the insights that we're getting now will reflect on improvements that need to be made, not just in the police, but elsewhere in our other institutions and in the minds and hearts of people.
No, and you're absolutely right on that. It's not, this isn't, I mean, yes, it was a law enforcement incident that started this, but it's much larger than just law enforcement. You're absolutely right.
Yes, right. To move to a different topic now, you had mentioned earlier some of the changes you've had to make because of the pandemic. Tell us a little about how you've gone about that and what that has meant by way of police behavior. Has it lessened? Have you discovered things that have made it easier, or has it been difficult?
It's been different. We had to change a lot of how we provide services to the community with this pandemic. From our offices, people used to say, well, geez, you don't smile. Well, now you can't see them smiling because they're all wearing masks.
Oh, right. Yes.
So, something as simple as that, seeing a friendly face. But as far as how we answer calls and things like that, yeah, it's been a little different. Some of it's been difficult. We're still called upon for dangerous situations and things like that, where our officers have to react. But if it's a minor call that we would normally go because it's a quality of life, it might be just a barking dog or a mailbox vandalism, we're not responding to them anymore. However, we have an officer that's on the desk, and those calls would be kicked up to that officer, and he'll take your information and fill out a report for the vandalism of the lost phone or something like that. But again, those are quality of life issues, and we used to like to go to the homes and you talk to the person and everything else. We can't do that anymore. All our officers, if we do respond to a call, we're asking people to come outside their homes, because as we know, it's a little better outside the home as far as in social distancing when possible. Our officers are wearing masks. We even have masks in the cruisers. If you don't have a mask, we'll give you a mask to wear, so that we keep everybody safe. Because been fortunate through this whole pandemic. A lot of police departments had a lot of officers come down with COVID and were hospitalized. Here in Falmouth, we didn't have any incidents of it. We had a couple of possible exposures, but after the after that was further examined, none of our officers actually came down with COVID where they had to be hospitalized. So we're thankful for that.
Mm. That's interesting and ironic that we are working hard to bring people together. Social distancing is required to keep everyone safe. So eventually we will be able to get back to normal times.
Exactly. That's what we're hoping for, to get back to a normal, not a new normal. The new normal seems to be social distancing and masks.
Yes, yes.
But we're still answering all calls for service, but just handling them a different way.
I see. And now, what has been the department's involvement in schools? That's another role that the police officers have to take that is fairly new. And how has that been working?
Yeah, we again, most of those programs, like I said, because of the COVID, everything got suspended. We used to have a lot of programs at the school, talking about, the Junior Police Academy. We had an officer that was a school resource officer. He was assigned to the Lawrence School and the high school. That's kind of gone by the way. However, he still does communicate with the superintendent if there is an issue with a student, and some of the principals on that way. So if he can do something he can do to help, he'll help. We used to do a lot of the all the elementary schools. We would do a walkthrough every day, just to see the kids, so the kids wouldn't be afraid of the police. We haven't been able to do that. The high five Fridays, where we would go to the different schools on Fridays and high five the kids as they were going in or coming out. Those are all programs that our officers enjoyed, the kids enjoyed, the staff enjoyed, parents enjoyed, but we had to suspend all those because of the COVID. One thing that we have done, and I'm probably going to have to suspend it pretty soon because our call volume is going up, we've participated in many birthday parades throughout the town, where a parent had called their son, a daughter, and adults. We've had some seniors who had some parades. We participated in some birthday parades, and to be able to see the kids, the joy that it brings them, and them cheering us on, and us able to wish them a happy birthday has been very heartwarming and enjoyable. But now with the probably in a couple of days, I'll be putting an email out that we have to suspend that for now, because with the state opening up, our call volume is starting to go up, so we're not going to have time to do that.
Yes, that's I didn't know that was happening. That's so encouraging. That is a wonderful thing. It must have brought lots of pleasure to lots of people at a really difficult time. I want to thank you so much for being here and for talking about all that. Viewers will have a real sense of what the department is doing and exactly what we can look forward to.
Well, Barbara, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share with the community, because it's important. Keep those lines of communications open. So
yes. Thanks, and stay safe.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah. Thank you for viewing, and we will look forward to seeing you again next time on Conversations with Barbara. See you. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you soon.